We have Gary. Please say what? Aye. Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Just remind members of any notification of, any notification of additional business. And then just remind any members of any declaration of interest. And we've got someone that will confirm the minutes from the 4th of August meeting. Andrew moves. Someone at second. For the second, was it? Awesome. All in favour, please say aye. Opposed? Carried. Thank you, Gary. Okay, first up we have item 7.1, and there's been some more development on that just in the last couple of days, which Ken will talk to us about, and there's also an amendment on the item. Morning, Ken.
Yep. Good morning, Mayor Ash. Good morning, councillors. I'm just going to get some slides ready in the background. Where have they gone? There. Sorry, just give me a moment. Oh, here they are, I think. All right, coming up now, I think. Okay, so so good morning all. So look, just speaking to the Waikato Waters deep transfer report, which you have in your agenda. Actually, there's a reason. Sorry, there's a reason that's not showing. Yeah, just like it's appearing like it should be showing. Sorry, let me just try that again. Stop sharing. Okay, hopefully that's fine. Oh, it's still blank. If I send that to you, Steve, can you share from where you are? Yeah, my apologies on this. And a sec.
This is the slides I see.
Yes, actually, have they been pre-circulated anyway? Oh, okay. Yeah, so have you got access?
See those? Yeah.
Or would it pay? Actually, it might pay just to put them on screen anyway, just so we can be sure. But yeah, my apologies. I'm not quite sure what the change is again. Actually, there. Okay, yeah, we'll have those now. Steve, my apologies, but I'll start talking while you pull those up. Okay, yeah, sorry about that technical difficulty. Okay, so look, this deep transfer report. So so look, we have an initial deep notice that is due with Waikato Waters next Tuesday. And of course, that is an important step in confirming the amount of the debt that of our debt that Waikato Waters must settle on the 1st of October, and secondly, the means by which it is settled. Okay, in terms of the means of settlement, the documentation that's in place around this whole transfer provides for three potential options. So the first of those is novation. where the novation is where the debt is. So this is all LGFA debt, local government funding agency debt. Novation is where it legally comes out of Matamata-Piako District Council's name and goes into Waikato Water's name. So yeah, so nothing changes with the debt. It's just the party who has to ultimately repay that debt and service that debt changes between the two parties. Another option is cash settlement. Waikato Waters can give us the cash, and then of course we can use that cash to repay the debt. That's the second option. Or the third option is that's provided for in the documentation is a deferred settlement until a later date. Okay, so yeah, so they will pay us in due course, and that kind of allows for debt to be held until maturity, and we will come back to that a little bit later in the meeting. But look, just in regard to the context of this, until very recently, we were working on the basis that we would novate across the full amount of the full amount of LGFA debt related to waters. Okay, so that was what we were looking to we were looking to move that across. And it was only about a month ago, it was on the 21st of July, that Waikato Waters basically signalled that they had some discomfort with the debt that we had. So not the amount of it, obviously well aware of the amount of it, the amount wasn't the issue, but I guess it was around the length of the maturity terms. It was around the fact that our debt was largely floating rate. Because the way we manage debt here at Matamata-Piako is we do floating rate debt, and then we put fixed rate swaps over it, which protects the interest rate and obviously controls the interest rate. The Waikato Waters don't do swaps. They haven't entered into any arrangements for banks to do swaps. So yeah, they really weren't liking our debt in terms of the maturity terms and the nature of it. So yeah, so that was something that they indicated, like I say, about a month ago. They also signalled, and the report talks to this as well. They also signalled that they wanted an independent review of the methodology around what was waters debt and what wasn't, and essentially approving of the value of our debt. So look, on that second thing, on the independent review, we, as the report says, we commissioned Dave Foster and Associates to do that review. Myself and Nadia had a phone call with Dave yesterday. He's progressing well in that review. The review is looking fine. He gave us good indication that he was comfortable. And we are expecting that report today. So yeah, so look, we don't see any issues on that side. But the thing we really need to talk to you about today is where we're at with this novation versus cash settlement, so that we can potentially sign off on this debt notice next Tuesday. So look, where we got to, like I say, the situation was Waikato Waters didn't really like our debt, but after some negotiation over the last few weeks, they have said, look, they're happy to take $53.5 million of the portfolio. Okay, so $53.5 million they're prepared to novate over. That's about 73% of it, so about 3/4 of the debt. We will novate across. But they are quite opposed to the remaining $15.5 million. There's two tranches over and above that 53.5 that ideally would novate, but they don't want them, and it is around the maturity dates and the fact that they're floating rate. So look, that gives us two options. And Steph, did you manage to pull that up? Oh, okay, right, okay. So it's not on the TV screen, right? Okay, cool. So therefore, let me just grab my copy of them. Okay, so yeah, so two options per the slides, and there's a little bit of a summary on the front of that, the first page. But look, I just want to talk you through just to make sure you're clear on what the two options are for that $15.5 million. So look, option one is that we close out that debt. Okay, so we actually make arrangements with the LGFA that despite the fact it's not maturing until October 27 or April 29, we actually close it immediately. But look, that comes at a cost because, of course, we had committed to the longer term. That cost is around about $130,000 that we would face if we were to close that debt down. Now, Waikato Waters has actually signalled, although this needs to be a continued discussion, they have signalled that they're not prepared to take on that cost at this stage. So yeah, that we will continue to have to negotiate. But look, I guess the long and short of it is, no matter whether they take it or whether that's cost that remains with Matamata-Piako District Council, it will fall on our waters ratepayers, that $130,000 cost of breaking that debt. So look, when we saw that, we thought, oh, that's a truckload of dollars. Let's have a think about what alternatives there are to that, and I'll talk about that in option 2. But look, just to demonstrate exactly what that looks like, so you'll see the chart. Option 1, I think it's the second page of the slide. Let me just walk you through this really quickly. So look, we've got the 13.5 million maturing in April 29. We've got the 2 million maturing in October 2027. To have absolute certainty on what those break costs are, what we were looking to do, or potentially what we could do with this option, is that we could refinance this debt, right? Okay, so it doesn't expire for ages away. But we're going to get some money. If you look down the chart, we're going to get some money on the 1st of October. We're going to get the 15.5 million in from Waikato Waters on the 1st of October. But look, to give us absolute certainty on what these break costs are, because interest rates are changing all the time. What we were looking to do was this Friday, we would actually borrow a new $15.5 million from the LGFA. We would borrow that. And also on this Friday, we would actually break that debt. We would early close it. So 15.5 million would come in from the LGFA, and then 2 million and 13.5 million. The whole 15.5 million actually goes back to the LGFA, and it repays that debt. Okay, so we've just closed down some debt with longer maturities and put it into a maturity that matures on 1st of October. And then just working down that chart, therefore on the 1st of October, Waikato Waters cash settles the 15.5 million, and then we immediately repay that maturing debt with the LGFA. Okay, so that's the way the cash moves, and like I say, the thing there is that will come at a cost of around about $130,000. Okay, what does option 2 look like? So look, option 2 is all around avoiding that $130,000 cost. Okay, so we do, on the basis that we don't want that $130,000 of cost to fall on our ratepayers. We actually will hold those 2 tranches of debt, the 2 million and the 13.5 million. We'll hold them on our balance sheet right through to maturity. And just to give you an idea of what that looks like, if you just zoom into that option 2 slide, and I'll talk to you about that. So the today position is obviously exactly the same. We've got 2 million maturing in October 27. We've got 13.5 million maturing in April 29. On the 1st of October, so nothing happens until the 1st of October, about a month away. And at that point, Waikato Waters will give us the cash settlement. The $15.5 million of cash settlement will come into us. Now, instead of repaying the debt and incurring the $130,000 of break fees, what we will do is we will put that $15.5 million into 2 term deposits. So a $2 million term deposit through to October 27, which is that maturity date. And then 13.5 million will go into a bank term deposit, or multiple bank term deposits through to April 2029. Okay, so the money comes in from Waikato Waters. It goes out into bank term deposits. Then it sits there. It's almost like a set and forget. That's what we do on the 1st of October. We almost set and forget this. And then in October 27, obviously the 2 million term deposit matures. That money comes back to us, and then we repay that debt, and then onto the drop down onto the next page. in April 2029, which is 2.5 years away. The other 13.5 million term deposit comes back to us, and then we repay that. Okay, so we're all comfortable with the way that works. So yeah, now in terms of the cost here, like I say, this is all about avoiding that $130,000 cost, but unfortunately, it does still create a cost to us. And at this stage, we're still just fine tuning that cost, but it looks like it would be about $95,000 of cost that we would incur. And simply that is the difference between the interest on the debt that we are paying and the interest that we're earning on the term deposits over that length of period of time. We will end up being having costs of $95,000 in terms of the difference between those interest rates. So it's still a cost that will obviously fall on the ratepayers. We would be working hard to pass that on to Waikato Waters Limited. But of course then they will pass that onto the ratepayers. So we'd still have that $95,000 of cost. We can't avoid it. It's a lower cost, but look, the downside of that is we were expecting that debt to be off our balance sheet, obviously, on the 1st of October, and that debt will be remaining on our balance sheet, or at least 2 million of it will remain on our balance sheet for another year or so. And the 13.5 will remain on our balance sheet for 2.5 years. Okay, so so look, essentially those are the two things we're working through. We're still fine tuning. We're still talking to Waikato Waters around some aspects of this. But look, essentially, this will be a situation where there's we can either pump for a clean balance sheet on 1st of October. All of that Waters debt is gone, comes at a cost of $130,000, or we can have that debt remaining on our balance sheet for a while. It is a lower cost. It's about $95,000, potentially falling on our ratepayers. And also importantly, in terms of that balance sheet thing, we don't think it's unduly going to compromise anything. We believe that we've got plenty of headroom, certainly plenty of headroom to borrow. It may potentially compromise our counterparty limits when we're making term deposits with banks, because we have fixed buckets that we can allocate to each bank. But look, we could potentially tweak our treasury policy for a short-term arrangement to avoid that. Okay, so that's essentially the two options. Now, I mean, we can open this up to discussion in a moment, but Steve, I just wonder if you could just project the amended recommendation on the screen, because we have been thinking about the recommendation that's in your agenda and just suggesting some tweaks to that. Oh, it's on the.
Yeah, so you'll be able to see it on the team.
On Teams, all right, okay. Give me a look. Is that screen out or something?
I'm not sure.
Okay,
Right,
right, okay. Oh, actually, I'll tell you what, actually, I've got a hard copy here anyway. Okay, so just going to that recommendation, look, the only thing I'm suggesting is, because look, realise that there may not be so much of a political appetite to keep that debt on the balance sheet. So understand that that may not be an attractive option. So look, the suggestion here is that we tweak this, that number 2, that as well as the officers having discretion, we actually bring Mayor Ash into that equation. So those 2 officers who sign the debt notice are consulting with the Mayor in regard to which of these 2 options we take. And look, essentially, this is just around determining the best means of settlement of that debt. It will still need to be supported by the expert advice of PwC, because there is some treasury complexity here. And look, the suggestion was that we talked about optimal outcome for our water, wastewater, and other ratepayers, rather than it necessarily being a cost thing. Okay, so that's really the changes that are being made to that recommendation. But yeah, look, Mary, I think I've said enough. I think I've outlined the situation. Yeah, keen to have some discussion.
Okay, before I pay you, Greg, I know you're, just wondering, Manoia, if you'd like to make a comment on it, because we, poor old Manoia, copped it from me, first thing on Monday morning, about 7:30 in the morning, as we were going over to Hamilton about that, I read it, but we sort of coming into it. I'll get Manoia to talk to it where.
Thank you, Mary. Good morning, councillors. I think the things that I would say is that completely recognise, acknowledge that it is Waikato Waters Limited's responsibility and right to structure its balance sheet the way it wants to. So, and the transition agreement had various options in it in the way that we could transfer debt, would recognise that could occur. So no question about that. But I think another very important principle is that that I believe is that we must acknowledge that this cost is a cost, or any cost, is a cost arising from the transition up to Waikato Waters. And given that it is a cost that is arising from that it is only appropriate that that cost stays with the waters activities, any cost. I think that's been a principle that the previous council had through this whole process. And there might well be windfalls that come out of this process or in the transition that should also go with the waters activity. So ring fence all costs. So I think that's a really important principle. The third thing I would say is, therefore, while I believe both options are viable and potentially anticipated in the agreements that we originally intended to, it comes down to risk, in my view. And I do believe that our goal and the focus that our team has had is trying to make sure that whatever is done is done for the benefit of our community, and our water consumers are our community still. That's why we're working through this process. But when it comes down to risk, we would have to ensure before signing off any agreement that Waikato Waters acknowledge that any risk or cost of risk sits with our water users. I have a view, and I'll express this as an opinion, because we don't have an agreement yet with Waikato Waters about the option to actually retain the debt on our balance sheet and use their money to repay that. We don't have an agreement with that. I do believe we have more leverage by retiring the debt pre-1 October, or by 1 October. So, and why do I say that? It's because it's very clear in practice and in principle that when you have a targeted rate, that all the proceeds of that targeted rate must stay for the benefit of those people that you are charging that rate. But also, conversely, any costs that should fall on that target rate are also ring-fenced. That's a very commonly held principle in rating. So my view is there is about a $40,000 difference between the two options. My view is that in the absence of getting absolute security of ring fencing any costs in that agreement with Waikato Waters, that we have more leverage before we transfer activities. In other words, retiring the debt in total, taking that $130,000 cost and applying it to our waters activities. What reconciles my mind in terms of imposing additional cost on our water consumers of doing that is when we did the transition process, all councils submitted a budget for the transition. which included potential redundancies. Now, the budget we submitted was 3 million. We will not get anywhere near that. We're being very prudent with what we charge, and we're fully open for that to be reviewed by Waikato Waters. In the same way, we were perfectly open to allow Waikato Waters to review our debt figure that we're putting forward. Of course we would. It's a big number. What I'd say is that the person we've engaged to review that was actually working as a part of the previous water reforms before they were stopped, and actually had been working on this process on behalf of the government. And so was very familiar with our financials. So we are very, very happy to be completely transparent about this. No question. But I do have a view that, sorry, to tie that conversation back. So I know that we've been incredibly, as we should, prudent about any transition costs that are passed as well. And my view is that any cost that arises, like this 130K, can be worn quite comfortably within that budget. So to me, it's a risk decision. It's about both transactions, both options are fair. In our view, both options should bring things to cost to the water activities. One, in my view, has, given the difference financially, has less risk to us. And that is to retire the debt earlier. That's my view. And I'll express that view to the Waikato Waters Chief Executive on this issue.
And that's, I guess that's, where my head was at, that all the debt was transferred over on the 1st of October. And I believe that's probably everyone in this room was in the same position. In my mind, the 130K breakout for that is definitely a transition cost, because it's part of the transition, however that falls. For me, I was disappointed to think that we would be then, struggling on over 2.5 years of, we've still got backing on the books, which I don't believe is what we were sold as a council, that was going to even happen. So I think, Manoa is pushed back a little bit on the Waikato Waters and basically suggested that's a transition cost, that 130 can come out of that budget. And then on 1st of October, it's clean, it's tidy. The total debt transfers over to Waikato. That's how I see it. Great.
Taraga.
Sorry.
Yes, I've got kind of two related questions. The first one is, how strong is their preference? And is it a preference for how they're structuring their financing, or is it an obligation? Like, obviously, we as a council have been comfortable taking on this debt in its current form. And so now Waikato Waters are saying we don't want to touch that. But we've signed an agreement where they're saying we're going to take on all the debt. And all of a sudden, they're sort of pushing back a little bit. And now we're getting $100,000 bill out of thin air for the ratepayers. When can we just push back and say, no, you're taking the debt on as agreed? Like, how much scope do we have to push back? And the second kind of question would be the debt review. Like, firstly, how much does that cost in order to perform the whole review? And within the review, do they have an opinion on this particular topic, on the debt currently structured and whether it's appropriate to be transitioned?
Yep. Yeah. So through me, Rachel, I'll answer those questions. Actually, perhaps the second one first. So yeah. So I mean, obviously there was a clearly scoped. There was a clear scope to Dave Foster's review. But look, it was all around the quantum of debt, right? So it was the methodology for determining that, and in particular, what ended up as being water's debt, what ended up being, general residual debt. For other activities, it was all around the methodology for that and proving those calculations. So there was nothing in that scope, and nor should there really have been anything in that scope in terms of the means of settlement. I mean, I think that needs to be a different conversation. Okay, so that's so does that answer that question? Yep, cool. And then just tracking back to your first question in terms of how much. I mean, do we have any leverage to be talking to Waikato Waters and insisting that they take on the 15.5 million? Look, the documentation that we are working to does say that should be a negotiation. That the two parties will negotiate in terms of what the means of settlement is. There has been over the last month or so, there has been some continuing negotiation there. We actually had PwC do a bit of work for us in that space in terms of this should novate, this should be held by council, and actually they weighed that up to make sure that the cost of funding of the novated portfolio and the weighted average cost of funding of the residual portfolio that NPDC would hold, that was fair and equal. So they did a bit of work in that space to make sure that that was all on fair terms. But look, at the end of the day, what we're hearing from Waikato Waters, well, actually fundamentally, I suppose Waikato Waters, the way that their treasury policy is geared, the way they manage their debt is quite fundamentally different from ours. So they rely on taking on debt that is fixed rate in nature, so that gives them their interest rate protection. That's the way their policy works. The way our policy works is actually we generally take out floating rate debt, and then we enter into swaps that convert that into fixed rate debt. And look, therein lies the problem, because the debt is currently governed by our policy, and swaps are a big thing in our policy. The moment we take that floating rate debt and look to novate it over, they've kind of got a real problem with their policy because they have no ability to protect the interest rates there. So immediately that debt suddenly is floating rate with no interest rate protection. So that's the issue. Like I say, initially a month ago they said actually we really don't want any of this debt. We'd far rather just write you the check and basically cash settle it. But look, that would have created a huge amount of breakage costs for our ratepayers. And in fact, I think there was an earlier number that was around the $400,000 mark. If we broke a much bigger portfolio. So we did negotiate that they took essentially 3/4 of it, but it's just these last two instruments that they're not prepared to take on.
Also, I guess my question is, for the overall ratepayer, is the cost associated with them coming up with an exception to their policy and approving that through whatever channels they need to, right?
Mm.
There must be a way for them to have some flexibility. Does the cost in setting up that structure outweigh the cost of this breakage fee? And my guess would be that it wouldn't, right? They must be taking on different structures of debt through the councils, and so it seems madness to just let them push us over and wear $100,000 bill when they can just alter their policy or name an exception.
Yeah, so look, a month ago when they first raised this, that was what I went back to them on. Well, so can they not have some sort of they will be in breach of their policy if they take this debt on. But I did say can there not be a board accommodation for a temporary breach? While you work yourself back into policy compliance. Their answer was no. Admittedly, that was me negotiating with their CFO. I mean, I think what we do need to do, in fact, this is obviously this is quite an enabling resolution in terms of leaving this open for a couple of days to try to do some further negotiation. We can escalate that discussion to CE level, or perhaps even council to board level. We can escalate that and try to push that harder. But the initial reaction of the CFO was, we want to be policy compliant day one.
Well, and if I was them, I'd want the same thing.
I'm done. I think, but like I say, the documentation allows for negotiation. We've gone a certain distance with the negotiation. If you want to go further, we can.
You just take your mic off.
I'll take my mic off. Sorry.
So, structure of the balance sheet is a responsibility of the board. They obviously that is their operational and policy structure. We we cannot get into operational issues. We can make submission, but we are a shareholder, and so we stick to our end. So they have the right to structure their balance sheet the way that they decide to. That is one of the responsibilities of the board and the directors. So I don't believe we have any right to say change your policy. We can ask them to, but I don't believe we have any legal right to do that.
And it's simple. Yeah, if they want to borrow the money on a fixed rate, that's fine. But they give us a check for 15.630 for the 15 grand from the little debt. We break it through, break it out. So,
There's silence, Ken. Why is there silence, mate?
Silence?
Why was there silence? You're thinking pretty deeply there.
No.
Yeah, no pressure on you.
No.
No, you're all good. Keep saying they. Who's they?
well, what, you know,
Yeah, right. You look what's going on in Wellington, and to me, this is just, doing deals with properties and that. If it smells wrong, don't do the deal. And I wasn't part of the council, but this smells not right, and it's horrible, and it is messy, and we haven't even started, and it's just not right. The energy is not right here. Something's not kosher with the financial and whatever's going forward. That's my personal opinion. And then it comes up, risk is with the water users. So once again, we're just going to use the ratepayer, the poor person that's going to have to cough up, look what's going on in Wellington. It's only just started. They're going to fit the bill. So if someone makes a muck up or miscalculates, or there's overruns, guess who's going to pay it? The poor bloody ratepayer. This is a dangerous game that we're playing here. I'm telling you now, this is really bad. That's my opinion, and I'm saying that publicly.
So if I can comment, everything about the arrangements that are proposed, the options are kosher, are legal, and were anticipated to an extent with the agreement. I understand what you're saying, Councillor Marshall, about the field. I have a degree of frustration with the way this issue has arisen. But ultimately, what I'm looking at is risk and principles. And number one principle is the debt has to transfer in its entirety, the value. And we're happy to be transparent about that, and we are. That's why we're agreed to a review. Number two, the cost of any transaction should sit with the water activity and not with any other activity of council. So those are two, and what we're doing here is in sync with that. I have a view about which one is less risky than the other. That's an opinion.
Andrew.
Thanks, Ken. Hey, you're wanting a decision on this today, correct?
No, look, so can I just clarify that? No, we do not actually need a decision today, because the recommendation that, the resolution we're seeking actually gives authority for Manaia, Kelly and Mayor Ash to get their heads together, with some further advice from PwC, and some further negotiation with Waikato Waters, and to determine the way forward. So giving them the discretion to work through that. But look, this item really is to achieve that, and also to basically indicate to you, give you a heads up on what some of these issues are, and look, if there are strong feelings from councillors, it would be great to capture those today to go into those discussions. Yeah.
I was sort of wondering, because you're saying you've known about this for a month or so, and I've always liked having a no surprises policy, and then you've just sprung it on us in the last 24 hours, I suppose.
Yeah.
And now we're meant to determine is $130,000 worth that level of risk for making a clean balance sheet, I suppose. So it's I'm just sort of probably disappointed that we just hear about it now, whereas we could have had a heads up, say 2 weeks ago or something, and got a head around it a little bit more. But I understand the resolution gives you a bit more time. And I had the same concerns as Councillor Glass over there around some of those other issues as well. So just wanted to basically express probably a little bit of disappointment that it's a bit of a surprise, and it might not. It's maybe no fault of your own too, because it might have been sprung on you as well. But you said you had a month's heads up, and we get it now.
Yeah, so Mirish, just to respond to that. So yeah, so a month's I guess a month's heads up that they weren't liking our debt and we needed to work our way through. We've been actively trying to pave a way forward, and it's really only probably in the last week or two, and in fact only in the last few days that some of these numbers have become able to be calculated and apparent.
Okay.
Yeah, so yes, so I mean, I guess we could have given you that heads up that Waikato Waters don't like our debt in particular. We could have given you that kind of a month ago. But in terms of these implications, it really is only the last few days. We have had PwC working away at this. We sort of had some time. We were giving Waikato Waters the opportunity to like we gave them the indication of the portfolio we'd like to transfer. Obviously they needed time to have a look at that. They came back with quite a different one. So look, there has been quite a bit of work go into this, and we're really only landing in a place now where we can have the discussion.
So if I could just comment on that. So we were talking about a month ago about a lot higher figure cost, which and I've been consistent with my views on this, and Ken has been moving the landscape to get closer to what we expect. But also there've been numbers changing in the last days. The numbers, and I'm not comfortable bringing numbers to council that are not more solid. And so we're down to a 35,000 net risk factor, which was a lot better than what we were talking about a month ago. So you can imagine there's been a degree of highs and lows in this process, but certainly we've had to really try and nail this down so that you do know the quantum of associated with this. So, but I totally acknowledge what you're saying. I am frustrated that we're in this position.
Has this happened to Waipa or anyone else that has already gone? Do we know? Not a good question. Or do we know if they have been through this process and what they came up with?
So look, the first three councils would have gone through a similar process, but look, the way that organisations manage their debt, differs. So actually, Waipa, and obviously I've got a lot of Waipa understanding that I bring into the room. Look, Waipa do manage their debt in a very, very similar way to what Waikato Waters do. So like the debt that came across from Waipa, they were pretty happy with, because the management was kind of the same, and I think even one of the other councils were in that territory. Yeah, it's just a different way of managing the debt that's caused the problem. Good question. Yeah,
Bruce. Good to see you back.
So from their point of view, they're having a fixed rate as their known factor, and we've had a floating rate. And it comes down to 130k
Or 30.
Well, 30.
Between the two options, I can comment.
Yes.
If I can just clarify, one option has a cost of 95k. The other option has a cost of 130. So effectively, that's the difference. So, but yeah, ultimately.
But okay, so at
Between the two options,
top end, it's 130k. All right, that will be borne by the water rate. Okay. How will Waikato Waters recover that, and how would MPDC cover it?
So, as I referred to earlier, in this whole transition process, we identified a transition budget, which is not even half utilised. This cost. So, in my view, this is what that budget was about. That there were always going to be something that would arise. That budget was designed to cater for that. So I'm quite comfortable that our budget will cater for this cost. My issue is in 2 years' time, that budget doesn't exist. It's a transition budget. It finishes when we transition. So that's how we will cover it. We will cover it from there, and it will transfer as debt. That cost is then transferred to Waikato Waters So to your point, and I think to an extent, Councillor Glass might have alluded to this, you would expect that Waikato Waters have structured their debt in a way that lowers the cost of borrowing to the water user. I mean, I haven't looked at that, but they've obviously structured their debt in a particular way, and they've structured in a way that they believe is more financially prudent. Ultimately, that should flow through to our consumers.
So my concern is not so much whether it's them carrying it or us carrying it or whatever, all right? But that transition cost, that 30,000 or 90 or 130,000 will be in the transition costs, right? And they're not going to argue about it.
So it's not where we're going to work.
Right.
Yeah. All right. Okay, so I'll go back to the resolution on that. So
That's the new one.
yeah, the new one.
Yep.
So everybody's got that in there, the recommendation?
So we don't need to decide on an option now, we just.
No, it's the resolution is basically, it's an ongoing conversation thing, obviously backwards and forwards. So, but basically the differences in that it was pretty much in item 2 on the recommendation, providing this authority council provides for discretion of those same officers in consultation with the mayor to agree in that debt notice for means of the settlement of that debt, provided this is supported by the expert advice of the council's treasury advisors, PwC, and is in the interest of seeking the achievement of optimal outcome for our water, wastewater, and other ratepayers. And officers will report back to council in due course on the exercise of this authority.
Can I just add one thing? It's where it says that the debt notice is due by the 1st of September, and this has come late, and now there's time pressure, and there's a negotiation to be had, and it seems that the pressure is on us because of the time constraint. So what happens if we actually don't meet the 1st of September, if we take longer in the negotiation to make sure that we get the desired result?
I don't feel under any pressure.
Mm.
Our position is quite strong. I don't feel under any pressure at all.
Yeah.
Just to say, I believe we have a very, very strong position, and I'll be making that clear.
Yeah.
Yeah, so can I just jump on there as well? So I would expect that by the end of this week, we would have had ample opportunity to nail this out.
Did I have a move that was?
James.
Oh, James, thanks.
So that second one, could we just have that clean without the untracking? Because I'm having trouble reading that to make sense. And then I'm happy to second it. Then Ashley, I just like I said. Sorry.
Oh, yeah, so Gary, would you like to move that in? And yeah,
I just
so,
want to,
and James, yeah.
Is that gone?
yeah, but I just want to see the. So in providing this authority, council provides discretion for those same officers in consultation with the mayor to agree in that debt notice. The means of all right.
Yeah.
In the debt notice. Oh, yeah. Okay, sweet. Providing this. Okay. Yeah, sweet.
So I've got that moved by Gary and seconded by James. Say to it, all in favour, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Gary. Thank you. Thank you, Ken. Lots more work.
Yes, no worries.
Conversations.
No problem. Thank
Is
you.
anybody else's mouse not working that I might have, ears up and they might have picked mine up?
Item 7.2. Niall.
It is.
Morning, Niall.
Hang on.
Help this.
No, not that way. Very six, most of
Good morning, everyone. So this report today is a review of our existing water services bylaws, of which we have 4 bylaws currently in place. And we're legally required to do a consistency review to review our existing bylaws to make sure they are fit for purpose under the new waters legislation, and also to align with the upcoming transition to Waikato waters. So the key point here is that the legal framework for water services, and in particular these bylaws, has changed quite significantly. So we need to understand what parts of our bylaws are still valid and remain appropriate, and which parts will require some amendment or replacement. Our existing bylaws were made under the Local Government Act at the time, and those are powers that we can no longer exercise. We now have to make bylaws under the new water legislation. So as you'll see in the report, we have done a consistency review looking at each clause of our bylaws to assess whether or not they fit with the new legislative requirements. Even though we have identified some areas of inconsistency, the bylaws themselves remain in force, so it doesn't change the current state of them, and there's no immediate impact on what we have and the rules currently in place. We will do a review of the stormwater bylaw, so you'll note that we didn't include that in the assessment that's provided here. And that's because stormwater is an activity that will remain with council. So we need to do that consistency review and work through that stormwater bylaw internally as a council. Whereas, of course, the other ones, water, wastewater and trade waste, are shifting across to Waikato waters. So we've been asked to provide this consistency review. And in fact, all the councils that are participating in Waikato waters have been asked to do the same by the end of this month. And Waikato waters will then use this report to propose new bylaws back to us. So early next year, council will receive new bylaws from Waikato waters, and it will be your role to consider those and make decisions. So we cannot delegate the powers to sign off bylaws to Waikato waters. That power remains at this decision-making table. So with that, I'll leave it there and happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Rob. Any questions regarding Niall's hand? It's pretty. James.
Yeah, no, I didn't have any questions. I guess a comment firstly that it's a really tidy piece of work when I read it, and a really worthwhile one. So thank you. And yeah, I think it's covered off everything that I was on my mind. So I'm happy to move it when the time comes. Ash, but realise that we need to have some questions.
Any further comments, or we've got a second for the motion?
Maybe second.
Andrew, second. Very good. Thank
I'm
you.
glad you would do it now.
Yeah, it is quite technical and a bit dry.
Yeah,
But,
yeah, I guess just to follow up, yeah, very technical, very dry, but the shocks that we haven't done it. So I guess that's just acknowledging the work.
Yeah, good. Thanks for that.
Great, thank you.
Done and dusted. Thank you. Okay. Item 7.3 with road naming. Okay, that sounds good.
Yeah.
Next, Steve, hopefully you're feeling a bit better.
Sounds like better, yeah. Good morning, Ash and councillor. Yeah, I think Barry, this report, we just take that as read. But,
Yeah.
Yeah, questions.
Okay.
I'm happy to move.
Second, sorry, you're moving.
Yes, I'm happy with
Okay, so, Thomas. James, Thomas, seconds. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. Thank you. And Susan, you're up next again with the proposed speed limit changes on Avenue Road.
Yes.
Downstream.
Yes, this report has been put together, just requesting council to approve to commence with the statutory process for reviewing the speed limits. There's currently a stretch of 70 kilometres an hour road on Avenue Road North and Burgess Canal Street. So this is due to it. We've had a number of customer requests come through with that. Also, probably made that risk worse with some of the footpath we've just installed for there. We've had a lot more development, so the traffic numbers have increased. So we think it is wise to look at reducing it to 50 kilometres.
And also the ladder and second, or you at home, all ready to go. James Sainsbury second. Yep. Okay,
That's good. That's good to get to that point.
so everybody's aware of that. That's the road just on the top of or to the right there, which is getting built out by the industrial, the speed limit is dangerous through there. So
Really odd.
in fact, I got a call from a guy just last week and said he got taken out on me. So that's getting when it was going to be changed. So that'll be good. And we've got footpaths there too now, which is great.
Yeah, so there is a process we have to go through, so I'd love to just be able to change it, but we do have to
Yeah.
get
Was
approval.
that,
Take this piece out, yeah.
Probably good time. Yeah, well, I think we've got time to fit in one more there. Item 7.13, delegation to staff for the local government act consultations.
What number is it?
7.13.
Oh, okay. I think not. Are you all sorry? Yes.
So,
May all vote.
yeah, if you want to pop up for that one, I don't think it's going to take too long.
Slow down.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's get that spread going. Right. Yeah, just told you like that. For the underlying fitness.
Thanks, Sandra.
Thank you. So item 7.13.
Yep.
Great. So delegations to staff. So this report is basically a bit of a formality. So I know council have discussed in the past having the availability of drop-in sessions instead of hearings under certain circumstances. So what we would need to do for when those circumstances arise, which council will make that decision on, we would like council to delegate to certain staff members to be able to listen to people, record their views, present them back to council. And it's a way of being a bit more enabling for our community. For those that are a bit more uncomfortable writing written submissions, they could come along, have a chat with ideally elected members, but obviously we can't always have enough elected members to speak to lots of people that might come along to a drop-in session. So this delegation is simply to give delegation to particular staff. So the policy and governance team, the communications and engagement team, the assets and projects team, and your chief executive and group managers to listen to those submissions or those thoughts on your behalf, record them for you, present them back to you formally as council. Obviously no decision-making powers or anything like that transfer. They would all still remain with council. It's just simply to be a little bit more enabling to let our community come to us where it works better for them. And Steph does have a slight change to the recommendation to bring up on the screen. Just to make it really, really clear that in the individual cases, we will come back to council for that approval. So you won't have to re-delegate every time, but our next consultation might be on the long-term plan. And for that, you might decide that yes, drop-in sessions are appropriate and staff are able to go alongside elected members to hear those views and record them. So this is a little bit of a formality to get that delegation in place at this stage, and then council will decide on a case-to-case basis.
Any questions on that? It's really, it's pretty, yeah, it's just tidying it up. Grace.
Oh, I was just going to second, sorry.
Yep. Sue's moved. Grace is second.
So just checking you're happy with the additional change that Steve's got on your screen there. So it's just clarifying that it is on that case-by-case basis.
Okay. Everybody's happy. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. Okay, we'll just jump to item 8.1 and we have a staff long service presentation, which is pretty exciting. And we'll welcome the guys into the room.
Thanks, Ken.
Yeah. Welcome to the boardroom. Morning. Morning. Come on up, Max. Yeah. Lads. So we, item 8.1, and we get the staff long service presentation. Yeah, word to so, Lance, take it away.
Yeah, thank you, Naresh. Nice to you all this morning. And I'll start off by saying, well, 20 years. So it's it's certainly been a pleasure for me and the team to be able to work alongside you. It doesn't seem like 20 years at all. We've gone from some difficult times through to times where we've developed systems that you've developed systems, and you've as I say, gone from some difficult times to times where you just got to look outside and see the results that Todd and his team have delivered for their community and for council. We stack up well against any other places around that I see, and that's all thanks to Todd and his team. I've been here a bit longer than Todd, probably twice as long, but I'm just going back to when we did have the difficult times and when we couldn't keep up with the mowing and stuff like that. We were silerating parks in the spring to try and keep up and keep things tidy. We've gone from that to reorganising what we've done through Todd's management and been able to keep the parks. I call this place over here at Boyd Park, Eden Park, Tiara, and that means a lot to me. And it means a lot to people that come down there, and I hear the valid comments coming through from the public. So, Todd, thanks for your sterling work there. Also, back in the times when we were doing private work, the team was stretched to the max, but we went through that arena then too, and we were doing work for the dairy companies, and we were doing work for around about 6 schools. As I said, Fonterra, England, Terra Hospital, we were doing all that kind of work. And Todd was able to manage that as well as all the other additional work from council. So once again, Todd, good thanks there. Just go back to another thing that Todd has made great improvements with, and that's a simple thing, is public toilet cleaning. That I can recall when we would get complaints after complaints after complaints, and we looked at Todd looked at what was going on there and how we could come up with a system. And we used to have the checking system and stuff like that, but Todd came up with the idea, well, what don't we want to see when we leave the place? And that's really fixed the problem. And staff going there, we do it. They do a great job, and if there's anything that's unsure of, they'll make some changes to it. And basically, when they leave, they know that they've got a good result for the end of that time. So well done there, Todd, as well. I'd just like to wrap up, Todd, by saying, I'd like to thank you for your support over the years too. You've been a great sounding board. We've had good debates, and you've been able to deliver on great improvements over the years. So with that, I'd like to just thank you very much, Todd.
It's up to you.
Okay. Right.
I keep writing reply, don't I? Just thinking.
So I'd just like to share a little bit of my journey with Todd. So, and just something little, I arrived in this organisation in 2011 for my interview. Hadn't really experienced Matamata-Piako district, to be fair, until that point. I was staying in Hamilton with my son, and I decided that before my interview at Matamata with Minaya, Dennis and Don, that I would just do a drive through of the towns and just have a little bit of a look. And I can remember driving from Hamilton, and my first town that I came to was Morrinsville. And as I drove into Morrinsville and I looked at the streetscape and the gardens and the parks and the reserves, I just went, wow, I hadn't experienced that type of well-kept pride in towns. And I've driven a good percentage of New Zealand at that point. And when I drove into Te Araha, I saw more of the same thing. And so I was suitably impressed. You know, streetscapes were great, the parks, reserves, everything looked tidy and pristine. And obviously, as I drove into Matamata, I had the same experience. So that, and I just couldn't believe, in my admiration for the team that were obviously doing the work, had grown tenfold as I drove through the three towns. And I obviously stopped along the way because I'm a lady and I need toilet stops. So I was checking out the toilets and I couldn't believe how clean and pristine that they all were. And so a few months later, when I was sitting in the Swively seat, I met Todd and met the man and his team that have been taking care of the district for, I think, at least 5 years at that point in time. And I was really excited about the team and the passion that I could see in the team that were delivering those services. And quite frankly, I've now been part of that journey with Todd and his team for the last 15 years, and I'm so proud of them. They do such an amazing job, and they have done that under the leadership and guidance of both Lance and Todd. So well done, Todd, well done. The other thing I'd just like to share with you is we have been encouraging Lance and I, Todd, to get him out of shorts and boots for about, I've been doing it 15 years, I think Lance has been doing it about 20 years. So we say that with love, Todd, and it's really good to see that you're now moving into leadership, and I'm very excited to see that journey with you. So you've developed an extremely strong team, and you've built incredibly strong community relationships, and you take pride in making a difference in the community that we serve. So thank you. I'm very pleased to be here with you today and with your team to celebrate your success and the 20th anniversary.
Fiona used the word passion. And funny enough, that's a word that I thought of when I was thinking of you, Todd. I think you have a passion for thriving communities, and that's not just the aesthetics, that's the people in our community. And I know that you get contacted by many, many groups and many, many people, and I think the elected members know this too. They get feedback about that. And I can't think of a role that is better suited for you because you have that passion for that. One of the downsides of being approached by lots of people is sometimes you try to say yes all the time, but sometimes you have to say no. But I also know that you're very principled in when you want to help people, but when you have to say no, there's a strong basis for that. And I think what I've really enjoyed seeing in that time, and I can't believe it's 20 years, is how you've grown and developed, and you've faced difficult situations and had to say no to some people sometime, but with a good reason. Todd's one of these people, like his colleagues in here. There's lots of things that happen in weekends and early mornings or late nights. He'll never tell you about it, but his vehicle will be out because somebody's got an issue, and he just doesn't hesitate to respond. So you're an incredibly valuable, valued and respected colleague, and it's wonderful that we're able to recognise that today, mate. Cheers.
I'd just like to say a couple of things actually also just on that. It was only yesterday, I was in a meeting, and one of the gentlemen came up to me and he told me that he was involved in the campers that come to here on that annual event. And he made special mention on how pristine it is from the the KV's teams when they get here every time. And everyone that comes from around the country makes comment on how good it is and how good standard it is. It's down to you. Also, in a conversation with a gentleman last week, and he was saying over in Matamata that he rang in because he had a lot of turbidity in this bath, water bath, and there was dirt in the bottom of it. She even showed me the photo. He said he rang the after hours number at council, and he just said it's no panic, but just a bit of turbidity. It happens sometimes. It's over in Matamata. And he said normally he runs the bath for a little bit and then it clears and he can hop in and have his bath, see, and that's what he did. His bathroom had a window open by the front door, and he said there was a bang on the door, and he heard someone out there, and he said, oh, who is it? And there was a guy that said, it's 9:30 at night. He said, oh, I'm a guy from the council. He got a problem with the water. And he said he couldn't, he was blown away by it. And he made special mention the next day to stop and talk to the guys and thank them. That's a testament to you guys. Thank you very much. Thanks.
Good work, thanks. Want to reply? You know, councillors want to talk first, I just.
Actually, I want to, I just want to say, with my other hat on from all of those years, I had Todd's direct number and I used it a lot. And he was always very, very polite, very helpful. So I'm really talking from the Matamata community there, Todd. And when you're on the other side, I know even more what you do, but everything that you did, every time I called you about something, you were so helpful, and that's just from the Matamata people. Thank you so much.
I appreciate those thoughts, and thank you, Manaia, Ash, Lance and Fiona. I think it's not written on here, but what you guys said is a reflection on the team. So that makes me proud because that's what I've developed. I guess I'm the same person I was 20 years ago, a lot older. Maybe less enthusiastic as when I started. But I'm convinced now I was doing the right thing back then as I am now. So exciting where we can go with what we got as a team and what I can do to lead that team. Team live stream goes off before morning tea. I'll finish this after morning tea. But yeah. I might have mentioned James Thomas in here somewhere. So 20 years later, I'm slightly less young, as I said, and still enthusiastic. I'm looking forward to the next part of my progression through management. Over the 20 years, I've been fortunate enough to work with some fantastic people. You know, they're fantastic people, whether it's the community, whether it's the councillors, whether it's my direct reports, or the people I report to. I've been very fortunate. I've had some really good experiences with the people I report to. I'm fortunate I only had one manager. That's probably a good thing because I'll put someone else through while I put Lance through. And Lance has helped me come out the other side of a lot of bad decisions because it doesn't all happen by chat. A lot of what I do needs to be supported by above. And when I made mention, yes, I do say no. And when I do say no, it's not normally me that gets the phone call, it's probably Lance or Fiona. So it's really good that I have the support of these people. As I say, there's no more supportive than Lance. If anyone deserves a medal for service for 20 years, it's probably Lance, particularly around the patients he has to provide, or he provides me. He puts me first and then worries about what happens next, which is it's a great quality to have as a leader or as a manager, because I've got confidence that a bad decision is going to be supported by my manager. So that was good. And there was a few of them. I think Tamihana Trees was one of those decisions. That last, he was an instigator of that. For those that didn't want the trees to act, but yeah, no, it was one we worked together on. We saved the council a lot of money, and I think the outcome was pretty bang on. It was a good decision made. As far as chief executives go, I've had two. And by far, you're the best one, Manaia. And since I've already got my role in the restructure, I can say that now. But I guess from time to time, you go to different training sessions with different help that we get as managers and leaders. And at many of them, they ask you, who do you model yourself on? Who would be a mentor that you would want your leadership qualities to be like? And it's not even a question for me I needed to think about. So when I think about leadership and I think about the qualities, unfortunately, I've got them all around me, but I always admire and respect what Mania brings to the table. And authenticity is something that I try and strive for as well. And he's always thinking about the people in the room, the people outside the room. So yeah, Mania, I've mentioned it to you before, as a mentor, as a leader, I think you're one of those people that I do aspire to be like. So thank you for providing that for me. When it comes to the GM, I've only had a couple as well. I guess there's a trend here. People don't seem to leave once I've been involved with them, but Fiona, it's been a pleasure working with you too. And again, like Lance, the support I get is just next level when it comes to helping me through situations that are normally raised or caused by me, but you somehow help me get through it. And it is that support that I appreciate, because it's the tricky ones that end up on your desk, and by that stage, I'm looking for help. I need the help, so thank you. Morning tea soon, isn't it?
Yeah, well, shall we adjourn for morning tea?
Thank you.
Hang on, shall we do the recommendation first then? Yeah, just do that first, then we'll adjourn. So, well done, Todd. The recommendation is just that the information be received with acknowledging Todd making 20 years of service to Matamata-Piako District Council. I'm happy to move that one. If we get a second.
I'm happy to second that and just add to that probably that the other thing is the heart that you show when you engage with volunteer communities in particular. And there's a tremendous amount of enthusiasm that can go to the table. So I'll happy to second that with that motion.
And all in favour, please say aye. Opposed? Carried. Okay, we're going to
So the purpose of the item today is to come to you for a decision to accept the plan change to be publicly notified for submissions and further submissions. And there has been an amendment to the resolution, which we've got on the PowerPoint, and Marius can speak to when we get to that. So I'll hand it over to you now, Marius, if that's okay.
Yes, thanks very much, Caroline. Fiona, and good morning, Mayor Ash and councillors. I understand that the normal course of events is that you will take the report as read. So if that's acceptable to you, I won't repeat that. Just got a couple of slides to remind you that we're talking of about Plan Change 62, the area opposite the Mangawhera Road industrial area in Matamata. It's shown on the plan on the slide. So the next slide, please, Fiona. Just to remind you that the step we're at today is for you to make your decision as to how you want to deal with this request, so that we can proceed down the Schedule 1 RMA process towards getting a decision on the plan change once notification and submissions have been considered. Next slide, please, Fiona. So your four options, you remember from the workshop, is you can reject the request, you can treat the request as if it were an application for a resource consent, or you can adopt the request as a council-initiated plan change, or accept the request as a private plan change. We worked through those options at the workshop and got a clear signal that your preferred approach will be to accept the request as a private plan change. So on the next slide, please, Fiona, we have recommended to you a decision for you to consider in 4 clauses. The first clause is that the private plan change is accepted by council in accordance with clause 25(2)(b) of part 2 of Schedule 1. And then we've added, including any minor administrative corrections and a final revised cultural values assessment if provided by the requester prior to notification. Now, the intent of that amendment there is just to provide a little bit of wriggle room in case there are minor administrative corrections, such as perhaps appendices that are wrongly numbered or not numbered. So that is what we mean by that addition. And then also we're aware that there is now a revised cultural values assessment for the Plan Change 62 site, but that assessment's not yet been reviewed or sanctioned by the requester. We anticipate that this will happen prior to notification, so we're just seeking leave from council to include that updated cultural values assessment if it becomes available in time. If it doesn't become available before notification, then the only other option would be for the requester to introduce that as a submission through the Schedule 1 process. But we're hopeful we can get that on the table prior to notification. Then secondly, that you resolve in accordance with Section 34A of the RMA to delegate the authority to decide the notification requirement for private plan change 62 to the group manager, growth and regulation, or the planning manager. That is just to create the mechanism for us to proceed on to notification once you've made your decision today, and for that notification decision to be signed off under delegation by either Ali or Nathan. Thirdly, that the CEO and Group Manager, Growth and Regulation, are authorised to appoint an independent hearings commission of up to 3 people, one of which has a chair endorsement. So we're seeking that resolution up front so that we have it in place when we get to the hearing on the submissions. That's just helpful for us to do that well in time because, as you'll appreciate, there are pressures to meet timelines, and also availability of suitable commissioners are usually very tight. So we like to try and start by arranging these things well ahead of time. And then fourthly, the hearing of submissions, if any, and decision-making of the plan change is delegated to the Independent Hearings Commission. That's been general practice at MPDC in the past, that you delegate the decision-making on the plan change to the Commission, being the body that will hear the submissions. More appropriate, I would argue, for the Hearings Commission to be authorised to make that decision. Thank you very much, councillors. That's it from me. Happy to take any questions.
Any questions for Marius on that? But Andrew.
G'day, Marius. Hey, just wondering, the proposed resolutions in 2 and 3, are they normal processes, or is that something extraordinary just for this recommendation for Calcutta?
Andrew, no, they are stock standard for all the other plan changes that I've been involved with.
Cool, thank you.
Everyone good? Okay,
I'm happy to move with that.
I'm happy to second when the time comes.
Sorry.
So any other questions, or we've got it moved by James, seconded by Sue. All in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you very much. Thanks, Marius.
Thank you very much, Mayors. Thanks, councillors.
Okay. So we'll go back to the waste assessment, which is 7.5. Thank you, Fiona. Thank you, Nathan. Susan and Olivia. Susan and Olivia, welcome. And the team.
Good morning. We've brought to you the draft waste management and minimisation plan, and in the report as well, we included the waste assessment 2026 that was completed. So today, we also circulated the draft here on Friday, which has been put into our formatting to align with being able to go out for consultation with the document. We completed a light review of the waste management and minimisation plan, and one of the things that is a change from the 2021 plan is around aligning it more to the national strategic direction and the hierarchy around waste minimisation. And what we also did, we refreshed the vision of the strategy to align a little bit more with our general community outcomes and our vision through the long-term plan. We've also looked at the goals that we had and just aligned one of them a little bit more to one of our community outcomes as well. One of the other things, we did really enhance some of the regional work that's happening. We had a discussion earlier around ensuring that the strategy, it is only a strategic document, the funding for all these things, they need to be reflected in the long-term plan and in the asset management plans. But one of the things we did want to highlight was that council is still looking at, what investment is going to be the best decision for us around whether that is maybe even a regional trying to recover in the long term, or whether that is we're even looking at some waste to energy kind of investment going forward. So the strategy has tried to be quite high level, but allowing enough kind of flexibility to look at what works for council from a meeting our vision, and also meeting the cost efficiency and affordability is a key driver for us as well. So I'm happy to take questions around that. I did receive some feedback around maybe just strengthening some of that, not waste to energy or other technology things as they come in, and they might work and meet our requirements around affordability, environmental outcomes, and reducing some of the costs. So there are a couple of tweaks that I think we suggested maybe making to the document, and just including another kind of objective just to highlight that if council was happy to do that, could just do a couple of tweaks to the document to just emphasise that point a little bit more. The feedback from council, if you're happy with the draft and as it stands,
And there's just been a couple of tweaks on the recommendation number 3. Just at the end of that is now the subject to an amendment to hold a hearing for people to present their views to elected members. And also item 4, council authorise staff to make any minor amendments required. Okay. If there's no questions, someone that's prepared to move. James Sainsbury and Andrew seconds. Any further comments? Okay, moved by James, second by Andrew. All in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
For those amendments to the recommendations. Opposed? Carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Awesome. 7.7, the adoption of Mayoral Fund and Mayoral Disaster Relief Fund policy. The one that we've actually covered off a few times. So these are just for the new councillors. These are just coming back now formally to sign off. And okay. Morning.
Good morning.
Sandra.
Yes, it started. So today we're seeking council adoption of the reviewed Mayoral Fund Policy 2026 and the Mayoral Disaster Relief Fund Policy 2026. Both policies have undergone their scheduled 3-year review, have been workshopped with council, and have been updated following those discussions. The Mayoral Fund enables the Mayor to respond to requests for small grants, donations, and financial assistance that may not sit within existing council grant programmes. The Disaster Relief Fund provides a framework for distributing financial assistance following a significant disaster event to affected individuals, families, businesses, community organisations, and more. Several changes have been made to the policies, including the addition of conflict of interest provisions, the introduction of a 2-step approval process for Mayoral Fund applications over $500, a guidance for establishing a relief fund assessment panel following a significant disaster event. These amendments strengthen transparency, accountability, and consistency in decision making. The conflict of interest provisions and enhanced approval processes respond directly to council and risk and assurance feedback. Staff recommend adopting the amended policies as they incorporate governance improvements while maintaining the ability to respond quickly to community needs. The new Mayoral Fund policy will be uploaded to council's website following adoption, and the Disaster Relief Fund policy will be sent to the civil defence teams for their administration. These policies will come into effect on 1st of September this year.
Thank you for that. Sue.
I think there's a couple of things I mean, which are great because protection. I read this. Who was the second sign off for them? I know you're going to tell me it's in there, and I did read it, but I can't. So
So for the process, for applications over $500, the application will be reviewed by the mayor, who will provide a written recommendation. And then a councillor other than the mayor will independently review and assess the application and either endorse it or not endorse it. The councillor's comments and recommendation will then be returned to the mayor for his consideration.
Sorry, I can see it in the fine print. Yes, thank you.
So, no further questions? Happy to move, James, was it?
Happy to move. Yeah,
Yep.
right.
Greg, awesome. Moved by James, Sainsbury, second by Greg. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, carried. Thank you. And welcome. Item 7.8.
Good morning, Mayor and councillors. So presenting this morning, the draft Manaki Whenua, Manaki Tangata Climate Resilience Strategy for Council adoption for public consultation. The strategy sets out Council's priorities for responding to climate-related risks. Actions are focused on understanding and communicating local climate risks, investing in practical, cost-effective measures that reduce impacts on Council's infrastructure and our communities, and ensuring effective adaptation, preparedness and response to extreme weather events. Development of a climate strategy was one of the key actions we undertook to achieve for our community as part of the Climate River Map, which was adopted in the Long-Term Plan 2434. The strategy is being developed collaboratively between Council and Te Mana Whenua Forum, with input from a working group made up of elected members, forum members and executive staff, and it's been informed by community feedback and organisational expertise. Just a reminder of the steps that have been taken so far to develop the strategy. From the latter part of 2024 through 2025, a series of workshops were held for Council and committees on a range of climate-related topics, including Waikato climate risks, climate-related insurance risks, adaptation planning, NPDC's emissions inventory, and NPDC's organisational climate risk assessment. Presenters included WRC staff and elected members, the Insurance Council, Hauraki District Council staff and elected members, and sector experts. During the same period, community views were gathered through an online questionnaire and a question in our resident survey. In mid-25, a first draft of the strategy was prepared with reference to the community views and with input from staff across the organisation. From July to October 25, the strategy was workshopped by the working group, alongside workshops and meetings with Council, TMF and Risk and Insurance. In October 25, Council and Te Mana Whenua Forum endorsed the draft strategy, and Council recommended the strategy to the incoming Council. Moving into 2026, the strategy was workshopped and further refined with Council, with feedback received during a facilitated workshop, additional individual feedback, and final review by elected members at a further workshop. All this feedback incorporated into the draft that you are receiving today. Changes made by Council in 2026 have sought to ensure the actions in the strategy are affordable, practical, and proportionate. The strategy fits well with one of the areas of focus that the Audit Office have signalled will be a focus during the audit of the draft 2737 long-term plan, namely Council's assumptions and responses to climate risks, and will thus enable Council to have a clear way to demonstrate their priorities and actions in this area. Overall, the Manaki Whenua, Manaki Tangata Climate Resilience Strategy's goal is thriving, informed and climate resilient communities in Matamata-Piako, supported by a prepared and responsive Council. Consultation is planned to take place over September, with consideration of public feedback and adoption of the final strategy set down for the October 26 Council meeting. Thank you, Mayor Ash. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much. This is another one that we've been working on quite considerably over the last month or so. So again, this is just coming back to the table to tidy this up and to go out to a consultation. Any questions for the ladies on that? Oh, I think we've got some.
No question, just a reflection similar to yours, Ash, that I think we've done all the work that we can do internally. It's now to go out and ready to be tested with the community and understand the feedback from there. Yeah.
Any other questions? No. Okay, have I got someone that would be ready to move the recommendation? Just bring to your attention item number 3 and the recommendation also adds on to the end of that, subject to an amendment to hold a hearing for people to present their views to elected members. Okay. Gary and Grace, second. All in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Thanks very much. 7.9, Venetia. Kiki. Welcome. And Sonia.
So for this item, we're seeking council's adoption of the reviewed multi and single year community grants policy 2027 and the natural, cultural and built heritage grant policy 2027. Similar to the mayoral fund policies, these have been undergone their scheduled 3-year review and have been workshopped with councils and updated as a result. Multi-year community grants support ongoing facilities, infrastructure and services that provide continuing public benefit. Single-year community grants support one-off projects, events, programs or activities with a defined and finished and start and finish dates. Natural, cultural and built heritage grants support heritage protection and conservation activities, plans, reports and resource consent costs. The multi and single year community grant funding criteria have been tightened to better distinguish between operational funding and project funding. Greater clarity has also been added around eligibility and application requirements. For the natural, cultural and built heritage grant, funding criteria have been strengthened and expanded to provide clearer guidance. The maximum single-year community grant amount has been reduced from $5,000 to $2,500 based on council direction at the 12th August workshop. This change is intended to better reflect the purpose of the grant and potentially allow funding to be distributed across a wider range of community projects. The maximum natural, cultural, built heritage grant amount remains at $5,000. Staff will review the effectiveness of the revised criteria after 2 rounds of single-year community grants and during the next long-term plan process for the multi-year and natural, cultural built heritage. Staff recommend adopting the amended policies because they provide clearer criteria, reduce overlap between grant programs and improve administration. The new grant policies will be uploaded to Council's website following adoption, so applicants are aware of the changes before they come into effect next year on the 1st of July.
Thank you. Once again, this is another one. Just coming back for recommendation today. The recommendation is the report be received. The reviewed multi and single year community grants policy 2027 be adopted by Council. Number 3, the reviewed natural, cultural and built heritage policy 2027 be adopted by Council and staff be authorised to make minor amendments where necessary. Any questions on that? Have I got someone that would be prepared to move the recommendation? Andrew would move that. And have we got a second for that? Bruce? All in favour, please say aye. Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Thanks. But moving to 7.10, Olivia. And not.
Morning again. So we're just here today to present the draft significance and engagement policy for your consideration. This policy is one that's required by the Local Government Act, and it's got a 3-year review cycle attached to it. So effectively, it's coming up now for its 3-yearly review. We have reviewed the policy at a staff level, and we discussed this with council a couple of weeks ago in a workshop, and you provided some direction on the changes that you wanted to see, and hopefully we've reflected that in the policy for you. Council also gave us a direction to consult on the policy and put that up, so we're just seeking your confirmation of that today. So the policy effectively provides a framework for deciding what issues or decisions are significant, and the levels of significance, and what kind of decisions council wants to engage on. I would just like to highlight a couple of key points in the policy where there's been some more significant changes, and that relates to sections 8, 9, and 10 of the policy. And these are additional things that have been added, and that's coming out of the waters legislation, which has required us to amend our policy to give a bit more detail about what is regarded as a significant water contract. So for us, that would be a stormwater contract. So we've had to lay out some provisions for how do we determine what's a significant contract. And if it's deemed a significant contract, then there's additional consultation obligations and additional decision-making obligations that are triggered from that. So it's really important that we get the criteria right and that threshold for what's a significant stormwater contract. So you'll see in the policy we've suggested that we make a provision for a minimum of 10% of our stormwater operating revenue would effectively reach that threshold. Since this agenda's gone out and having a bit further thinking about this, what we've suggested is potentially adding in a reference to our gross stormwater assets, so referencing the value of our assets. So the contract's based on the revenue we get, but also the total value of the stormwater assets. So just wanting to check with council on that. And you'll see that we've included a provision for a contract that is longer than 15 years. So again, checking that you're comfortable with that inclusion. And that aligns with the approach that we're seeing other councils take as well, in terms of setting a reasonably high bar for what's deemed to be a significant contract. So I want to just confirm that. You'll also see in section 10, we have included some details about how we would consider a joint water services arrangement. So this is if council decided to form an arrangement with another council in relation to stormwater. There are set steps that we have to go through in determining is that a significant joint arrangement with another council or another water services provider. So yeah, that's additional information. In terms of the criteria in the policy, so this is covered off in Schedule 2. And we've just done some minor updates to this to try and get them a little bit more streamlined. And in section 10, in Schedule 4, we cover off our strategic assets of council. Effectively, the obligation is if you've listed them as a strategic asset in here, and council later decides to sell one of those assets or transfer the control of it, we would need to put that proposal into our LTP, or otherwise it would trigger an LTP amendment. So there's quite a high threshold for dealing with those particular assets. That is if we note that we're looking at a group of asset approach as well. So if we just decide to sell a little bit of a piece of road reserve or a bit of land, that doesn't affect the overall network, that wouldn't be triggered. But if we decided to sell the entire asset class or that entire asset listed, then that would trigger those extra processes. So we've added in there our Waikato Water shareholding as a strategic asset following your recent direction. We've also included our refuse transfer stations, the 3 refuse transfer stations that council owns, and also the Te Aroha mineral spas. So those have been added in as strategic assets. So really just want to confirm that you're comfortable with that as it's proposed. In most other respects, the policy is similar to the one we currently have. So just coming back to the recommendation, we're just seeking your adoption of the policy today, confirmation of those sections that relate to the water contracts and joint arrangements that I mentioned earlier, and just confirmation that you want to put this up for public consultation, along with the other documents that have been discussed earlier in the meeting. Happy to take any questions.
Andrew.
Yeah, apologies, no, I've already asked it, but I don't know if I have or not, but significant engagement policy, does it tie back to our risk management framework in any way? Like if it's a significant decision, it could be high risk or low risk, and that would give you a flavour on how much engagement you probably need to put out.
Yeah, so in general, what we've set out is the criteria is in Schedule 2. There's not a specific one that relates to risk, but as you can see, it does look at things like consistency with prior decisions and the level of public interest, what's the financial implication of it. So a lot of those risk areas are covered, but you'll note that in our reports, in our staff reports, we actually there's a section in our reports that deal with the risk. So it always asks us to consider that and put that forward to you. So yeah, that would definitely be something that's kind of implicit in this, I guess, but not specifically mentioned. But yeah, happy for your feedback on that.
Yeah, my thoughts around it is that I mean, I'm not sure of the purpose of going out and consulting on the policy itself, or the benefit that we would get from actually doing that. And I don't think it's significant enough to do this policy, but that's my thinking around that. And so I was wondering why, the option 2 was, option 1, to go out for consultation on the policy, or option 2, adopting the policy without consultation.
And ultimately, I mean, just to respond to that briefly, I mean, that's a decision that you can take. You've got that choice. We haven't consulted on the policy for several rounds. I think last time it was 2018 was when we last took it out, but all the reviews since then, council said, no, there's nothing significant here, and effectively we've rolled it over without that consultation process. That's a decision you can make if you feel you've got sufficient information and knowledge of what the community thinks about these things.
That's sort of where my head's at.
So yeah, where my head's at as well, there's a significant amount of information in there and so on. So yeah, so I'm looking on that. That could be happy to be challenged.
Yeah. Any further questions?
Yeah, I guess the only thing that I would say is that this underpins decision making that we can make downstream in terms of whether we go out and consult. So I think the ability to say, well, this is why we're consulting or not on something. It's good to be able to lean back and say that was based on a policy that was well tested within the community. I would be surprised if there was much feedback, if any. But it's more just about being able to say that we gave the community the opportunity to contribute to the policy or test the policy that in turn determines whether we go out with other things.
Yeah.
So again, yeah, I think I may have raised it when we were in the workshop, and that was my rationale at the time, but I'm not going to die in the ditch over it. Like, I appreciate it. It's just that it's been a number of years. And I guess that's the whole point of it, right? It's been able to say to the community, look, we're acting in this way because this is something just with the community.
So look, I'm not phased either way. I'm just thinking of the community's understanding of it and what feedback we would actually gain from it or get from it. That's the only thing. But I do agree with you, James. Like it's what 2018 was it the last time we went out with it?
And you probably weren't any replies to me.
No.
I guess what we're intending if you do take that option to consult is we would just put that out at the same time as the waste minimisation plan and the climate resilience strategy that you've just adopted. And we'll just go as part of that bundle on our website, giving that opportunity for people to provide the input.
Definitely. I wouldn't be going alone, that's for sure.
Absolutely acknowledging that this is that probably testing it with the community on a regular basis is not a bad idea. It's been 8 years, and that this is a tidy, streamlined point at which to do it would be.
Yeah, no,
If there was appetite for it.
I actually agree with that. What's your thoughts? Show of hands, maybe. Is everybody comfortable with it going out?
Can I just make one comment?
Yeah.
That's just not what our team that observed online. Obviously, you have to make a decision that best sits with your judgment. I guess the question that's been asked is, in relative terms with everything going on, where does this sit in terms of workloads? That's all. And I think it's a fair question that I've raised with me on it. So that's why I'm just mentioning it to you.
Nick?
With the consult, there wouldn't be a lot of workload, would there? Nah, you just point them to the website and go in there and no one's going to look at it, are they?
Yeah, look, I think what,
No one really cares.
no, can I just comment on that and look, it doesn't look like, but our comms team will get involved.
No.
No, they'll get it, this is what happens.
Oh,
They'll start pick it up and they'll tape it and package it so that, because we got to consult on it, we do our best efforts on that. So I'm not trying to say no, I'm just wanting you to understand that that's all, it's your call.
Sure.
I'll move option 2.
Which is that?
So option 2 would be to not consult on the policy.
I'll second that.
Okay, so Bruce, and we've got Greg. Okay.
But could I just check, just to confirm what council wanted to do in relation to that clause 9 of the policy? And if you're happy with.
However,
Sorry.
should we be led by staff? That isn't a question.
Oh,
Wait, can we just clarify what option 2 was, sorry?
not to consult.
Option 2.
Is to
Sufficient information about community interests and preferences to enable the purpose of the policy to be achieved and adopts the updated significance and engagement policy 2026 without consultation, with the policy coming into force on the 1st of September 2026. That's option 2.
And so what were you just seeking clarification?
Oh, I was just wanting to seek clarification in regards to clause 9. So just around the threshold of those significant contracts. So as you can see in clause 9.2.2, we've got that this is where a contract is of high value with a minimum based on a minimum of 10% of the operating revenue for the service and a threshold of 15 years for contract duration. So yeah, just really wanted to test if you wanted to reference the total asset value in relation to stormwater as an additional component to that would be our suggestion. And also perhaps just clarification on whether you feel all of those criteria would need to be met in clause 9.2 for it to be significant, or are you comfortable if just one of those would be met, then that would trigger that extra process. So just really seeking your guidance on that to make sure that this lands where you want it to.
And it's in line with the councils that Peter was saying before, or not?
Yeah, maybe Olivia, you might like to speak to that.
So having had a look at a couple of other councils, some that have said if one criteria is met around, I think it's around financials, or that it's that the council believes it's of significance to the community, then it would consider all of the criteria together as a bundle and then make the decision of whether it is significant. So you could put in there that in consideration with all of the criteria, whether or not the contract meets all of those, all the criteria set out, and whether council believes it also aligns with community outcomes, your vision, your goals, budgets, that sort of thing. You can take that kind of holistic view and determine significance. So we can update the wording to reflect that if that is your direction that you'd like to consider all of the things specifically set out plus a more holistic view. Or you could say if the proposed stormwater contract meets the threshold of 1 or 2 of the criteria, so particularly around the financials, so around the gross revenue, then you could say it would be determined as significant and therefore would consult. So you can, I guess, if you want it to meet, if it needs to meet all the criteria or one or two, what that looks like, and we can tweak the wording to.
Okay.
I suppose we just wanted to make sure that we don't set the bar too low, you know, and that we're having to trigger this for kind of routine contracts that we might be awarding for stormwater. So it's just trying to strike the right balance.
Okay, yeah, I'm comfortable with that. I'm just, my question is, in regard to the recommendation, that basically the recommendation for today is to adopt policy for consultation or option 2 without consultation.
So if you adopt it without consultation, what we can do is either go away, make the changes, and council can adopt the policy with the changes as set out today. We can go and make those changes, and we can set the date for when the policy would come into force. So whether that is 1st of September or not, or if you would like to see those changes first before it's put in the policy and comes into force, then we are happy to do that. And we can take that to your end of September meeting, or can provide that information to you separately if that's what you're comfortable with. But if you're not consulting, again, you can set the date this policy will come into force, as long as you're comfortable with what's in the policy.
Or you could just amend that if the council was comfortable, you
Yes.
can just amend that number B to say with the amendments, you know, that you would like to see today, and we would just make those.
Yes, yeah, so you would change B to include the amendments.
Yes, if you watch. Yeah.
With C becoming the policy comes into force, will be reset for adoption at the end of September meeting. Is that what you're saying?
If you'd like to, so you could either adopt it today with the amendments and set the date.
I would be happy with that.
Or you can say, start make the changes and it comes back to you on the 25th to make sure you're happy with the changes. So it's up to you.
You're done now.
Yeah, done now. Yeah. Okay.
Everyone clear on that, or Bruce, do you just want to read that through again then, just for clarity?
So council determines that it has sufficient information, right? Right. We've got to get this inclusion of the.
You could just stay there and maybe add it at the end. You could just say council determines it has sufficient information and adopts the updated policy without consultation, subject to staff making an amendment to clause 9 or section 9 of the policy. And if you wanted to specify what that looked
Can I just comment about section 9?
It's the financial side of it.
Yeah, and section 9.2 says council will consider the following criteria. That's what you'll do. So you might decide when you've reflected on the criteria, it's not an absolute decision is what I'm saying. You might say on balance, well, that one is triggered, this one isn't, your call, and you will try to ensure that's consistent.
It's the financial side of it is the key one.
Exactly. So, well, you've got the 15 years, and I think 15 years is an extraordinary contract. So I think that's a good trigger. You might argue for whatever reason that in a particular instance, an 11% contract isn't enough of a threshold for you to trigger significance. I'm saying it's a judgment call on you.
It's a consideration.
Yeah, it's a consideration.
I think that's how we intended it to operate.
Yeah.
And just in reading this, it might be good to add that clarification that this is an on balance consideration. And as Manoa pointed out, you know, that council will consider this criteria. It's not necessarily entirely determinative of what might be
ability and decision.
Yeah,
it's not a trick.
Yes, and so just to, in terms of being specific, how that wording can sound compared to what's in here, it can be council consider a contract being significant after considering all the criteria in the clause and the overall impact, value, and importance of the contract. This approach ensures that only contracts with substantial impact on council operations, finances, or strategic direction are classed as significant. So that's saying in again, a more holistic view, and then one here being triggered, and therefore it's significant. You can take that wider view if you like.
Yeah.
Would you be additionally comfortable just to add in a clause just for any minor amendments to be made to the policy, just to make sure that if we find some typographical errors or something like that, we can just tidy those up before we release that policy?
Yeah.
So do we need to say anything about clause 9 after all that? Bruce?
Well, clause 9 is and it's the financial side of it. I want, and Manai mentioned the extension, the time factors. I think you've got enough direction if we on what's required. All right.
So we can just add in, if you're comfortable, you can just make that amendment into option 2 to say staff make an update or a correction to clause 9 to reflect a more balanced, approach to considering a significant contract and any other minor amendments required.
No, I would be happy with that. As long as we've got that flexibility in decision making.
That's great. Thank you.
So we've got that down here. So staff make an update amendment to clause 9 subject to minor amendments. Is that what you're saying, no? Anything else you want to add to that?
No, just minor amendments to clause 9 and I guess any other minor amendments that might be required in the rest of the policy. Yep.
Okay. Everybody clear on that? And Greg, you second that? You're clear? You're happy with that?
Yeah.
Okay. All in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Greg, 7.11, Sierra Hunter Destination Playground. And Sue's in the team. Just Sue's. Good morning. Yep, good morning.
Yeah, good morning, Mayor and Councillors. I'll let Greg run through a presentation and we're really after your direction about how we proceed. We've got funding this year and our budgets for the Te Aroha Destination Playground 1.5 million. So we've just been thinking about how to, get the community involved in this project as well. Like we have done some of the other playgrounds that we've delivered throughout the district. So Greg will just run through the presentation with you.
See the press were very hot off the page for that one, weren't they?
Didn't waste any time, did they?
Contact units today.
So yeah, we're trying to come in and see, not here.
So just going through the fashion around what we're asking today. So this is around looking at what sort of best sites for the playground. We've also, so what we're asking is to improve community consultation to go out around a preferred site, play things, equipment, and then make a recommendation back to council before a decision is made. As a project team, which involved 13 people around council, we looked at 13 sites across Te Aroha, various sizes, narrowed it down to 4, and did a workshop and shortlisted 2, Boyd Park and Te Aroha Domain, both with interesting challenges as well. So that's what we'd like to go out to the public and seek direction of what they're after. Boyd Park, flat, flexible site with fewer delivery constraints. Te Aroha Domain. Oh, it's not. Okay. So Boyd Park has less sort of delivery constraints. Te Aroha Domain is more central, statutory location, existing infrastructure. Both remain good options, but we want to hear back from the community around what they would like to see. Trade-offs, less central for Boyd Park and may need stronger destination appeal, whereas Te Aroha Domain is central, but trade-offs is around terrain accessibility, stakeholder complexity, heritage New Zealand, and whatever's under the ground that we don't know about, springs and the like. So we want to go out to the community. What we want to hear is which location is sort of best fits the community needs. Seek their feedback around some of the unknowns that we don't know about. Play themes, so which local stories, landscapes, ideas should inspire the playground. Experiences, and also equipment, access and exclusion. So we want to make sure that it's accessible for all ages as well.
I think we did a similar thing, if you remember, Thomas Park and Lawrenceville too, did go out and just ask the community, did you feel there was a gap with some of the delivery of our playgrounds within that town centre? What was some of the specific, what the toddlers, was it all ages, or some of the feedback from the community of what we should focus on? We also asked some questions around lots of favourite play equipment, and is it climbing, is it rising, those sorts of things to get some input into, design and how we proceed with the project. And Matamata was a little bit different. We had a very strong community group, but so Te Ara, we're trying to get community a bit involved in the project.
So what we're asking today from council is to endorse us to go out to consultation on both shortlisted sites and then gather that information back and report back to council for a final decision.
We are in your hands, so yeah. Check the feedback if you want to proceed differently.
I'll just jump in. Is there any group that's showing any initial interest in Te Aroa at the stage before we go out there? No.
And there's, a lot of smaller kind of groups have got, lighting up the domain and the changes that are interested in attracting and keeping people into the town. But there's probably not a dominant one like we have in Matamata. That's here.
Okay, so let's just go to, three.
But very much just put it out there, then you might find that they'll come forward, eh?
Yeah.
And then the going forward, as far as the design of and how do you intend on asking them that question? Because you might have you got a rough idea as what you sort of want to put in there, or I suppose it'll vary from whether you go there or over there, right?
Correct. So we'll put out sort of what equipment play themes, and then we'll consolidate that, get sort of shortlist, and
Not just simple, and then
and then that'll go out to the designers to propose design up something on whatever location.
Yeah.
Let's see how that looks.
I think at this stage we are still quite keen to do it like with Thomas Park and come up with some designs and then get community feedback as well about some different designs and what's proposed.
I'm happy to move this when the time comes. I like that we're consulting on it, not just putting it somewhere. I just a little note that could be an idea would be going directly to the football club and the rugby club. I know on a Saturday and during the evenings when I've played sport there before and still do that a lot of clip there a lot of the time. So they'll probably have some feedback on there as well.
Okay, no, that's good. That's great. Any other comments or?
Well, just as you know, Greg, we had a thing the other day, walk around. The part of this is to develop the domain. This is another little stage for it. Because that's the golden. Yeah, I agree with rugby grounds. You probably just put a slide over there. They've already got swings. This is in the heart, so there'd be an ongoing thing for the domain, footpaths. This is so. Yeah, do you know what I'm saying? Yeah. To say that this is part of a bigger picture for the domain, as well as a playground for the kids. But I think consulting with the kindergarten and maybe not kindergarten, the primary school kids, they'd love to do a little draw a picture of it, post the competition for the domain. And if we could find some time for that, or get someone to just email the primary schools and say, hey, is it post a competition to draw a playground for the domain? And that'll give you a real insight. Hey.
Yeah, it's tricky, like 100% consultation needs to be done. It's the best way to do it. But I imagine that yeah, there's going to be two groups of people, right? There's the ones that play the sports and really want kind of to capitalize on the ability to have kids engaging in the playground on that side. And you also get more bang for your buck because you've got less constraints in building. But then, yeah, the other side of the coin is that anything that you can do to develop the domain, you'll get a critical mass, hopefully, and it'll start becoming, self-fulfilling where other initiatives can be sprung up. And so, yeah, I imagine we're going to go up to consultation, we get feedback, and then whatever we end up going with, we're going to have a big group of people who are upset because we didn't listen to them. So it's going to be an interesting process.
But yeah, hopefully it gives us some direction. And, yeah, but no, it's that's great. Got that move by Grace. Have I got a second? Greg? Look forward to seeing what comes back. Moved by Grace, second by Greg. All in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. And Greg, you're up next again.
This is Greg's first time around with bulk funds. It's my the number of these. Just for the new councillors, we Greg has put some stuff up there. So we have allocated some funding in bulk funds every year. And bulk funds is really for our unplanned capital work. So it's not like your grants and that. This is actually creating council assets. And we look at things, so that things that are not, you don't have renewal, we don't want to kind of include, the purpose of it was not to include basic renewals and things like that, but it was trying to just deal with some of those things that we hadn't planned for in the long-term plan. But, it might be a community group, it might be a customer request or something that's come through where there's been a request to do some type of some capital asset. This is basically covers kind of the parks and open spaces side, and also it does cover the facilities and building sites, so those areas. And we generally have 141,000 every year, and we have not been very great. So we are coming to you with actually lots of those fundings to allocate. What we have done is we look through and talk to our operational managers, and we look within the strategy team as well if there's anything that's on the horizons that we've had. The team goes through a basic assessment to try and put some priorities on it, but this is a council decision. You can decide what we should spend the money on. But this time around, Greg, you've got those 3 projects, the basketball hoop replacement, which is something that I know we have going forward. We will have kind of a renewal funding for that because that should be quite general kind of renewing assets. But at the moment, we don't have that kind of funding there. There is also some footpath replacement stuff at Hannah Street Reserve in Te Araha, and some carry protection cleaning stations for the carry dieback. So 2 of those at the trailheads. And
then just swim zone point of sale system. So that one's coming out of contract, and they need to replace it with something that's a bit more for the purpose for aquatics.
Doc, don't put any money for the carrots.
Yeah, I was just going to ask that.
Yeah, I was going to mention that too.
Yeah, they'll be doing the installation for us.
Doc will.
Yeah.
So we can follow that up before we spend the money to make sure that they're going to
Maybe
they share Jesus. Tell them we'll pay when we get the money.
From the whole,
put them in and
Yeah.
wait, pay them. I'm not sure who is next at the scene.
Just very quickly, you may all beat me to death here. Just didn't carry dieback the reason for it going ahead is not due to feet in the forest. Just that was a side issue. Didn't they find that it was?
Yeah. So the Rotary Grove's a whole lot of things.
No, it wasn't that. Because it was something to do with that, but didn't they? Anyway, you guys know better than me, but I thought there was a change to the thought of how it was. Anyway.
Transmitted to me.
Yeah, that's what it was. Right.
Pretty sure.
Anyway, if they say they need feet cleaning things, I guess we do.
It's like road cones. Oh, I think stop. James, thanks.
No, they might need cones. It's not that bad.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with James and Sue about probably funding and going for the basic model too, not the gold-plated one like Matamata-Piako, because that's got a big pest-proof fence around, so that's why they need that gallbladder one. I just wanted to question you on the 43 grand for 2 basketball hoops. I mean, do they have to be ceiling mounted or?
Yeah, I
surely
think-
Yes,
With the new sports stadiums that we've got and those ones that are there, they are quite complex. Yeah, and they come from the ceiling that you can raise them even lower, so they are reasonably expensive assets, aren't they? Yeah.
But Eden's not a new stadium. is it?
No, Eden isn't, but yeah. Mm.
Just, yeah,
Yeah.
I just saw the cost, and I thought, geez, could do quite a lot before you really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So one of the things we kind of brought this to you to get cracking, get your feedback about progressing with some of the projects. We do still have, and you haven't allocated the full amount. We can come back to you because we're also keen if you have had anything out in the community or things that you've picked up, and we can work through that as well. And we can come back to you. I think at the moment we have also just thought that it might be a bit safer to leave a little bit of money there too. I know that we're currently working on the Matamata playground, and although we're spending all that money on the playground itself, there is that potential to at the moment, the parking and the flooding in that area, and that whether there needs to be some more money invested in some of that. We've also got doing some work at the Te Araha Cemetery where we're having to do some more drainage. So there are a couple of things that I suppose are not plans that are potential risks that we may have to come to you with some more funding for. So it might be safe to keep a little bit there for anything like that.
Sure. James, thank you.
Yeah, no, just I guess my observation is I think the bulk funds are a really good tool for us to use, and I think this is operating exactly as I would hope and expect it to. And I guess when it becomes, actually, I'm really happy with the recommendation, including point 4, which is just leaving that capacity. One of the things that come up, realising that there are a few things on the horizon that may come up. So I'm really happy with the report, and again, good for us to be able to review it and test it as we have here, but happy with what's proposed.
Okay.
I'll catch up with you guys later if that's all right, but I'm happy to second it as well. I've just got something that might, I don't know if it'll fit or not, but I'll talk to you afterwards.
Yeah, thanks. So have that moved by James, second by Ed. All in favour, please say what?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Ellie, you want to do your one? Is it quick?
So Ryan's going to come up.
The number is?
We're just the one that was just after lunch, 7.14. It's got a huge. Thank you. And then we'll break for lunch. You're on a roll.
Hopefully this will be a very short one there, Ash. So the purpose of this report is to endorse Andy Bouvier and Ryan Johnson as Tier 3 controllers for Matamata-Piako District Council in accordance with the Civil Defence Emergency Management Act and also the Waikato Civil Defence Controller Policy. The policy requires Manaia to nominate controllers for our district. That those controllers then get interviewed by a panel from the group, and then that is then appointed by the joint committee, and then it comes back to council to endorse those controllers for our district council. A controller is a statutory position that we must have for our district. So when we go into the response phase, Ryan and Andy will be the controllers of those events and set the direction and the control, whether it's a weather event, an earthquake, landslide, anything like that, they will sit in that controller's position. So I recommend that we endorse both of them, and it does note that Ryan can be a controller in South Waikato District Council and Hauraki District Council as well, and Andy is a Tier 1 controller, which means he could actually be a controller for the entire group, but because this is a statutory position in an event, we do need to have controllers. Their first point of call for Ryan is for Matamata-Piako District Council, and for Andy it is the service shared service arrangement. So that's the first point of call we need.
Ash is somebody that works with Ryan on occasions, more than we lots of occasions lately. I just think he's got the skills, and yes, totally agree, and for Andy as well. So I'll move.
He didn't have any interactions in his previous job?
No, not at all.
I had a few from his previous job, yes. I'll second that, yeah.
Yes. Sorry, so couldn't resist.
No, absolutely.
He looks the type.
Yeah.
Okay, I have the move by Sue, seconded by Rewity. All in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Thank you very much. I think we'll break for lunch. Yeah, we'll break for lunch. We're right on time.
Thanks, Mitch.
Give me Ash. And so presenting here a progress update for the long-term plan 2027-2037 project. The development of the long-term plan is well underway and it is currently on track. Big picture items such as the vision and community outcomes have been completed and are providing essential direction to guide the development of the plan. Key building blocks such as the performance framework are well progressed. Strategic planning is progressing with a significant piece of work recently completed, namely a series of workshops with council to review and provide direction on the proposed planning for each of its activities. And with workshops on the emerging themes and issues for the financial strategy and infrastructure strategy coming to you next week. Now the task will be to bring all the pieces together. Finance are currently developing the first cut LTP budget based on your direction at the activity plan workshops, with this draft budget scheduled to come to you at the end of September. We will also soon start talking to you about telling the story for your community, considering which topics from the long-term plan that you wish to engage with the public on. In terms of risk, the two key pressures for the long-term plan project are the risk of constrained staff capacity impacting LTP deliverables due to multiple and complex competing obligations, and the risk of legislative uncertainty delaying decision-making and budgets. LTP staff project group are meeting weekly to develop their approach to key issues, ensure the project is on track, and actively manage these risks. A quality assurance process has been developed with the aim of ensuring the LTP documents are of good quality before they are submitted to audit, so as to keep the time and cost of audit as low as possible. As signalled in the report, the draft audit engagement letter has now been received, with the audit fees schedule yet to be received. In the letter, audit signalled the following as areas of audit focus. Our assumptions, especially those related to legislative reform, the application of the significance and engagement policy in determining the topics for consultation, financial sustainability and prudence, asset information, our performance framework, our assumptions in response to climate risks, the infrastructure and financial strategies, and the financial model. Staff will be meeting with audit on a regular basis from now on to ensure the audit process is as smooth and efficient as possible. Yesterday, we received perhaps a little more certainty on one aspect of legislative reform with the introduction of the Local Government Rates Capping Amendment Bill to the House. As expected, the bill confirms a target range of 2 to 4% will apply from year 3 of the long-term plan to general rates, uniform annual general charges, targeted rates, and penalties on unpaid rates, and will not apply to fees and charges or stormwater charges. A provision not signalled previously adds an interim target range of the same 2 to 4% for years 1 and 2 of the long-term plan. However, with a lighter obligation on local authorities to have regard to the cap, but not requiring them to comply with it. The bill is not expected to pass until after the election. Staff are currently reviewing the bill and can discuss the implications of it in more detail next week as part of the discussion on the financial strategy and as part of first cut budget direction discussions. Going forward in terms of LTP project updates, staff intend to bring another progress update to the September council meeting and each subsequent council meeting until LTP adoption in June next year. If there's any additional information you'd like to see in these updates, then please let us know. Thank you, Matt. Happy to take any questions.
Awesome, thanks, Shane. Great to hear we're on track. That's the main thing. In light of what's been going on in the last few months, so that's really encouraging. Any questions for Anne? For that, no questions. Have I got someone that will move the recommendation that council receives the long-term plan 2737 progress update, August 26 report. Council acknowledges the direction provided through workshops open to the public to inform the development of the long-term plan 27-37. It's Gary and Sue. All in favour, please say aye. Opposed? Thank you, carried. Awesome. Thanks. And yeah, thank you. Thanks. Policy and district plan update.
Hi, I'm happy to take the item as read and move to questions if you like, or I can give an overview, whatever you wish to do.
Okay, any questions on that? No?
Just,
Sure.
just RMA update. When will we know?
It was going to be last week.
It was going to be a couple of months ago.
Yeah.
Any
Should have been.
clues, Ellie? Any clues?
So Fiona has an update. You can give an update about where the bills are at in the Parliament.
Okay, yes, they've just started talking about the bills in the committee at the House yesterday. So they're going through sort of clause by clause and different sections at the moment. So, and once that debate has happened, then they move through to the second and third readings and then royal assent. I think they're anticipating royal assent in mid-September. So quite close towards the end of the sort of parliamentary cycle. So yeah.
Have they had select committee?
Yeah, they've had there's a select committee report on the legislation website, and there is a raft of different amendment papers as well. Yeah.
Do you want to reference how many amendment papers that are on the table?
Well, there's about at least 30 or 40 for each bill, and they're still tabling them as part of the discussions yesterday. So, yeah.
There was, there was a comment this morning arguing from some experienced commentator of some description, of course, which is me at the moment, that everything is being rushed through too quickly, and you know, this has been going on for so long. But, you know, it's just my thoughts.
It's very frustrating. Bruce and Ingrid.
Just a comment is that when we started talking about rates capping and what Helena say, well, you know, it's going to be a lot easier. This is Watts, wasn't it? This morning saying, you know, because the councils won't be doing 45% of the, you know, resource consents and all sorts of things, you know, so they'll have much less work to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I heard that too, Bruce. Simon Watts, he's quite smooth talking, should be selling cars. And he said 40-something resource consents not required or something.
Yeah, 45% or something, yes.
45, actually consent, neither, and then the 4% rate cap, you're thinking, well, as we've been saying, that's quite irresponsible, because if you go 5 years with a 4% rate and then you got all this infrastructure, what are you going to do? Where are you getting the money from? So, yes, be frugal, but I don't know, yeah, it's like, it's sort of got that little national at the moment, the individual little parties going on. Chris Bishop's one of them, Simon Watts the other one, Buxton's going this way, and yeah, God, I don't know, 4% rate cap. Good for some council, I don't know. Short term, maybe, but not long term.
I think the problem is too, is you don't need a consent for these, you know, these tiny homes or granny flats, but you need something else and something else and something else that's just as, just the same. So anyway, we won't go down that track. Have I got someone that will move the information be received? James Sainsbury, have I got a second? Andrew, thanks, Andrew. All in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Gary. Okay, thank you. On to the mayoral diary. I can take that as read.
Yes, I approved, I counted the days, Ash, and I think you qualify. So yeah, you're busy. So yeah, I always do that. I look at whether you have a day off is more my question. So
It almost, it doesn't capture everything either, and I've got to start putting more things in because sometimes it starts off, but this doesn't look like a too bad a day, and then it just goes pear-shaped from there, but it's good. I still enjoy it. I love it. Yeah.
but as I say, sometimes you have to be aware that you need a day or two off.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I am doing things a little bit differently this time too, especially taking calls into the night that I used to do all the time. So it could be any time, 90. It's an interesting job. It's sort of a counsellor as well, like in a counselling role, not a counsel role. You know,
You should 0800 helpline.
and it's a lot of times
It's helpline.
it can be like that, and you get a lot of people in the community that you don't even know, and they're pouring their heart out and ignoring it. That people are hurting out there, So, but it's interesting, and like I say, I do enjoy it. So yeah, it's cool. So someone moved that to someone second the report. Gary, all in favour, please say aye. Opposed, carried. Okay, we're going into public excluded. Have I got someone that'll move me into public excluded? Greg, move me in, and Andrew, public excluded.